Next, we're going to look at an effect that allows you to disperse or decay an image. So you need to find an image that you want to break the outside of it up of. It won't make sense till you see the end products. You might want to skip to the end and have a look, see what it looks like at the end. I've chosen a robot. You could choose a human, you could choose a rock, you could choose a piece of fruit. It could be anything you like. It depends what you're trying to achieve. So make sure you've got the image on a transparent background. Now, I've already got this on a transparent background just from the one I found. If you need to, though, you could, of course, find an image, use your selection tools to cut it out and put it on a transparent background. And make sure that it is unlocked. That's the first thing. So the first thing to do is create a duplicate layer. So I'm going to go this one and press Ctrl+J to give me a duplicate layer of that. And then I'm going to create a new layer that is blank. So I'm going to press this button here, make sure it's blank. I'm going to put that in between those two layers. Okay, so I could name this one if I wanted to, original copy, and I'm going to call this one background. Next, we're going to fill the background white. So when you're on your background layer there, just go up to Edit and choose Fill, and you're simply going to turn the contents white. Press OK. Now we're going to rename our top layer and call it Effect, because that's going to be the layer with the effect on it. And then we are going to duplicate the effect layer, so Ctrl+J, and we're going to call this one Robot. The next task is to hide our top layer here so we can't see it. And now we're going to work on our effect layer. So click on the effect layer and then choose Filter and Liquify. So this should bring up a new window. What this allows us to do is warp our image. Don't worry about what it looks like at this point when we do this. It looks a bit strange, but it will all make sense later. So the more we warp it, the bigger the effect's going to be. I can change my brush size if I want to, but basically we're going to warp it right out to the edge. It takes quite a while, this bit. I'm going to go right to the edge, so I'm going to pause the video now, finish doing this around all of the robot, and then I'll restart the video so you don't have to watch me doing it all. So when you've liquefied it, just press OK. Looks really strange. Don't worry about that. You'll see what we're going to do with it in a minute. Now we're going to create a black layer mask on top of the effect. So make sure the effect layer is selected. And we need this button here, but before you press it, make sure you press down Alt on the keyboard, ALT, and then press the button. And you should get a black layer mask. Don't worry that you can't see anything at the moment. And also don't worry that the picture looks white even though the mask is black. That's correct. So next we're going to go onto the top layer robot and make it visible again. And this time we're going to create another mask, but this time on the robot layer, and it's just a normal mask. So I'm going to click that button there by itself and it should give us a white mask. Now make sure the top layer mask is selected. So remember it's got those white edges around it there. And we need to make sure our foreground colour is black. So if I go over to my colours over here on the left, at the moment it's white. So I need to toggle those, I need to turn it around. So I'm going to click that button. Make sure I've got black at the front there. So now we're going to use the brush tool to create a brushed effect around the edge of our character. So here's my brush tool over here. brush tool. Up here in my properties toolbar, I've got the properties of the brushes. I can choose one from here, but the easiest way to see it is if I use this button here and get the toolbar open on the side. So I'm going to press that instead, and that allows me to see everything, and I find that just a bit easier to see because I can see everything a bit easier at once. So you might have some of these ticked, and you can see that adjusts basically the width of how far the brush goes. That changes the shape dynamics, that changes the texture as well. It gives me a dual brush. I can do all sorts of things, so it depends on the type of brush I want. But I want kind of a texture around the outside of this like that. And as you see as I work in a minute, I will rotate it as well so it doesn't look like a pattern. So I can change the size of the brush how I want it. Okay, and I'm basically going to start doing this. Now that's a bit too close together for me, so I'm going to open it up a bit. I'm going to scatter it a bit. There we go, that's a bit better. And we go right around the edge of my shape. I'm going to rotate this so it looks, you can see here it's giving me the preview, so it's not the same pattern. I'm going to carry that on around here. I can also change my brush as well. So I'm going to go back on here onto the brush settings and change my brush so I can change the way it looks. There we go, that's quite cool, I like that one. I don't want it too wide though. I'll be able to edit that slightly in a minute, but that's slightly too wide up there, so I'm just going to bring the size down a little bit like that. There we go, I'm going to bring that back in. Actually no, the first thing I'm going to do is change the rotation again to change the pattern so it doesn't all look the same. You can see over here, you start to see in the vector mask an outline of the character there. I can keep going like this as much as I need to, really. I think that's a bit too, I probably want maybe something like that. So I'm basically trying to soften the edges of the shape with my brush to kind of blend it in a bit. And this will become clear while we're doing this in a minute. Next job is to select the effect layer, the mask on here, and make sure you clicked around the mask and make sure your foreground is now white. So you're going to add the main effect now, so make sure you're on your brush tool again. You should have your brush toolbar over here from before, from the brush settings. If you don't, just go up here, click on it, and you should be able to drag it over here. Now you can choose a variety of brushes to do this, and it's quite important you do to get different textures and patterns. So I'm going to choose this one to start with. I'm going to take the size down a bit, and I'm going to start doing it over here like this. It might look a bit strange at first, but it will all make sense later. So I'm going to do that a bit there. I'm also going to change the angle of it so it doesn't look quite so uniform, and I'm going to change the size of it to be a bit bigger. I can make it even bigger if I want to. Depends what kind of look I'm after. And I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to do it on this side as well. So I can play around with the sizes and also the style that I want. So I'm going to keep doing this basically until I'm happy with the spatter that I've got with the kind of breakaway effect. Now we're going to mix the colours a bit better, because you can still see this isn't mixed very well over here. So we're going to click back on the effect layer and choose the actual picture here, and we're going to go over to our brush tool, and this time we're going to choose the mixer brush tool. Once you've chosen the mixer brush tool, go up here and change wet to about 25%, load about 42, and you want mix and flow to be 100 each. And now you're just going to use your brush look to mix the colours. So it will make sense when you do it. You'll see that it is mixing it, so that it doesn't look quite so liney, I guess, quite so streaky. You can see that it's hard to see. If I just control and zoom in a bit, you'll be able to see it a bit better. So have a look at some of this, for example. You can see there, if I do that, it's mixing the colours. It takes a bit of time. Basically, you can go and do that, and you're then not left with lots of lines everywhere, and it mixes the liquify layer that you did here with your brush effect that you've done, so that the colours are not so rigid. So that takes a bit of time to get right. Once you do it, it looks amazing. So I'm going to pause. I'm not going to make you watch me do all of it. I'm going to pause and show you the end result. I can, of course, change the size of my brush if I need to while I'm doing this. But you can see here, that's a lot better than it was. I could spend a lot longer on it, but I don't have as much time as you. So there's an example of how that looks so far. But I'm still not happy. I think it needs a bit of tidying up. So I don't want all these specks in here that I've done. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is click on my top layer mask, that square there. And I'm going to select brush tool. Make sure the foreground's white still. And select a brush tool which has got, I could use it over here, I guess. A soft brush. So I'm going to click on something like that, for example, and hardness. That's about right, really. And then I can zoom in, Control and plus, and I can see on my robot up here, I don't want some of these, so I'm just literally going to colour them in like this, so that I can see more of the original robot, where my paintbrush has kind of gone over the bits I didn't want it to. So again, this is just a bit of fine detail work to make sure it's not I don't want some of these, for example. There we go, that's a bit better. I can get a better picture of what the actual original picture was then, because I went a bit overboard with my effect earlier, and some of these are a bit too far in. So I can basically keep doing this to tidy it up until I'm happy. So I'm going to Control minus and Control plus to zoom in and out to do this tidy up. So I'm pretty happy now with my dispersion, or some people call it a decay effect. I think that looks really nice. So I could just leave it like that. I could save it to make sure it's saved. I saved it earlier, so I'm just going to save it again. But what I could do if I wanted to make it even better or change it, and depending on the look that I'm after, is I could add a texture as an overlay. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So if you've done this, you've kind of done the dispersion decay effect. If you want to watch a bit further, carry on watching, and I'll show you how to add a texture as well as an overlay. So if I want to add a kind of texture over the top of this, to make it a bit more interesting, the first thing you've got to do is go and find a texture. So I've been on Pixabay again. I found some water droplets. You don't have to do water droplets. You could do ice. You could do grass. You could do all sorts of different textures, anything you like. So once you've got an image you like, right click, save the image as normal, and then in Photoshop, go File and Open. Find the image, open it up so it's by itself on its own file. And then you're simply going to use the Move tool, click on the image, drag over the top of your digital graphic, and I'm going to let go, and it will put it as a new layer on top, which is what I want. Now mine's not the right size, so I'm going to stretch mine out. Of course, I would need to be careful of my pixel resolution for this when I'm choosing my image to make sure that it was suitable. So I'm going to press Control and T to transform it. I'm going to make it like that and press Enter. But I've just covered everything up. So I actually need to make this the overlay. So I go up to my blending options and choose overlay, and you can see immediately how amazing that looks. Brilliant. But that is currently on 100% opacity. So if I want to change it slightly, I can just choose my opacity and change the opacity levels, and you can see there the difference that that makes in terms of the colour. Now I really like that, and I'm happy with that, so I would just save that. You could obviously alter it if you wanted to. You can move the top layer, you see, which changes. You can see there where the edge of the picture is, it changes the texture depending on where you put the overlay. Okay, so do experiment with the overlay that you choose to see what looks best for the texture that you've chosen. But I like that. I'm happy with that, and I'm going to press save. So that's a really quick way of adding a bit more excitement and depth to your to this particular effect. Have fun making this and think about how you can use it in your digital graphic that you are going to make.